Hi students, I welcome you all to EPG Parshala. This is Dr. P.A. Rajeshwari, Assistant Professor in the Department of Food Science and Nutrition, Avinashalingam Institute for Home Science and Higher Education for Women, Coimbatore. Today we are going to learn about report writing. Research report is a condensed form or a brief description of the research work done by the researcher. It involves several steps to present the report in the form of thesis or dissertation. The research report is the final stage to be completed in the process of the research. It is an important part of the research study. In research report, a researcher will have to make a complete account of the research activity conducted. A research report is the exposition of a research project and it is the end product of any research activity. In research report, the problem of research methodology used and the conclusion drawn will be defined and described clearly. Writing of a research report is different type of work in research process. It requires to have different skills to complete the task. Therefore, due care and consideration should be taken in this stage of report writing. The report serves the following purpose: to convey to the interested person the whole result of the study in detail and to enable the reader to comprehend the data and to determine the validity of the conclusions. Generally, a research report, whether it is called a dissertation or thesis, consists of three parts. Number 1, the preliminary, that is the prefatory pages. Number 2, the text, that is the main body of the report. Number 3, the reference material. Now let us see each parts in detail. Number 1, preliminary section. The preliminaries consist of the following components: the title page, preface including acknowledgements, table of contents, list of tables, list of figures or illustrations, and list of abbreviations. Number 2, text or context. The text of a dissertation or thesis consists of the following sections: introduction, main body of the report, which is usually divided into 2 or 3 chapters and sections. And last is the conclusion, which is summary and recommendations bar suggestions. Number 3, reference material. The reference material is generally divided as follows: bibliography, appendices, glossary of terms, and index. Let us now move on to each compartment in detail. Title page. The first page of the report is the title page. The title page should carry a concise and adequately descriptive title of the research study. Its principal use is to tell a prospective reader whether or not to refer the report. The title should not claim more for the study than it actually delivers. It should not be generalized either from the data gathered or from the methodology employed. Although title page format differs from one institution to another, it usually includes name of the topic, the relationship of the report to a course or the academic degree for which the degree is conferred, the name of the author, the name of the institution where the report is to be submitted, and the date of presentation of the report. Here you can see the model page of the title page of a student report. Next comes the acknowledgement and preface. A preface is not a synonym to either acknowledgement or foreword. A preface may include reasons why, in the first place, the topic was selected by the researcher. It may explain about history, scope, methodology, or the writer's opinion of the place of the study in the field of knowledge and how it will provide a basis for the dissertation. This is an appropriate place for him to make acknowledgements. If the researcher has opted to discuss the significance and nature of his research in a subsequent chapter, usually introductory chapter, then he may not write a preface, but he may use the page only for acknowledgements. Let us now move on to table of contents. The purpose of the table of contents is to provide an outline of the content of the report. If logical and appropriate topical headings are used in the report, the table of contents presenting them becomes helpful to a reader. The table of contents appears after the preface or acknowledgements. It may contain only a list of chapters and their appropriate Roman numerals followed by page number on which each chapter begins, or it may be more analytical, containing besides the chapter titles, subheads or section headings, or words or phrases indicating the subject matter of the chapters. Subtitles, however, should be intended under each chapter title and be followed by the specific pages or section references. If reference to specific pages or subtitles is not desired, the subtitles may be run together and separated by semicolons or dashes when so many subheadings exist. It may give an overcrowded look if all these are included in the table of contents. Hence, these may be placed at the beginning of that particular chapter below the title and number of the chapter. The table of contents should also be included in the acknowledgements or preface, list of tables, figures, etc. And the first page is not referred in the table of contents because it is always the title page. Similarly, the table of contents page is also not referred in the table of contents. While typing a dissertation or thesis, the table of contents is typed last. The heading table of contents should be centered at the top of the page and typed in capital letters. Here you can see the sample table of contents given in a research report. List of tables and figures. If tables and figures are included in this report, separate pages for them should follow the table of contents. Both tables and figures sometimes are given together in the same page itself. Figures and illustrations are synonymous terms and refer to maps, drawings, graphs, charts, diagrams and photographs. The term plates is used for photographs. The full titles of tables and figures worded exactly as they appear in the text are presented with corresponding bar connective numbers and page location. Arabic numerals are usually used for identifying tables, figures, etc. In the list of tables and figures, the title should be typed with initial capitals rather than all capital letters. Whether a separate list is given for plates, it is usually numbered in capitalized Roman numerals. Some institutions prescribe all capital letters for all titles and captions in tables and figures. Whatever the form used, it should be used consistently throughout a research report. Next comes the abbreviation. In the reference, whether in the form of footnotes or literature cited or bibliographical notes, it is possible to use abbreviations to avoid writing and typing long names in full. Only such names should be abbreviated which are likely to appear too often in the report. Names of persons are never abbreviated. Most of the forms of abbreviations are universally acceptable because of the international readership of scholarly dissertations and theses. The list of abbreviations should appear before the beginning of main text. The text contents or chapters. In a thesis or a dissertation, the text or context may comprise chapters. In a short term paper or report, they may consist of sections appropriately set off by centered headings. The division of the text into chapters, sections, or subdivisions should reflect the organization of the parts with one another and with the whole. The division should be logical to make the contents meaningful. The text usually consists of introduction, main body of the report devoted for analysis, interpretation, and presentation of data, and summary and conclusion. Introduction. The introductory chapter normally includes the following. Introduce the subject by highlighting its special features in about 2 to 4 pages or paragraphs. The introduction should interest the reader in the subject matter of research. It must not be dull, confused, aimless, and lacking in precision. Here comes the important points to be noted in writing introduction. Statement of the problem. A clear statement of nature and importance of the problem with specific questions to be answered or hypothesis is to be tested. A consideration of significance of the problem and its historical background is also appropriate. The key questions and the location of the problem in the theoretical context of the concerned discipline or subject should be specified. A breakdown of the problem into consistent elements, major subdivisions of questions. The objective or purpose of the research study. Review of literature, that is summarizing the current status of research works already done. A review of the persistent past work and contradictions, pitfalls, other failings of the earlier work, mainly to substantiate the need of another research study. Significance and justification of the present study. The significance of the problem, the contribution which the study is expected to make to theory, its practical importance, and the national relevance should be specifically indicated. The scope of the study, pointing out the exact coverage reported upon and position of the research within its larger context. Conceptual framework, that is various concepts or domain proposed to be used in a research require to be stated. Definitions or special meanings of all important terms so as to enable the reader to understand the concepts underlying the development of the investigation. Methodology adopted. The methodology describing the research design used, the data collection method employed, sampling design, how the fieldwork was carried out, the variables and controls employed, the reliability of instruments selected or constructed, and the statistical tools and procedures used in the analysis. Limitations of the study. A statement as to the limitations of the research project under study. All research designs have limitations, and so do all research implementations. The sincere investigator faces these problems and reports them carefully and honestly in the introduction itself. Chapterization. Purview of the scheme of chapters in the main body of the thesis and their interrelationship. Next, we will see about the main body of the report. This is the heart of the research report and probably the largest section of the report. It should be an organized presentation of results, and each major division of the problem should be presented in a separate chapter in accordance with the methodology used. This way, make a few chapters, an optimum number being 5, to present all the arguments, documentation, ideas, concepts, interpretations, and findings. The chapter should include a discussion of the issue or part of the problem investigated and the evidence used in its solution. If this becomes lengthy, a summary of the evidence may be made at the end of the chapter. Through textual situation and tabular and graphic devices, the data are critically analyzed and interpreted. Complex tables should be placed in the appendix. The data themselves should be described fully. They should be analyzed in detail, and all the evidences resulting from the analysis should be presented. These chapters are primarily for the use of the reader who wishes to make a detailed study of the problem. Therefore, every bit of relevant evidence should be supported by logical reasoning and empirical facts. Materials should be organized systematically and presented under appropriate headings and subheadings. Next comes the conclusions. This is the last part of the text of the report. It consists of the summary, conclusions or generalizations, suggestions and recommendations. The summary may be more or less a restatement of the topical sentence of the various findings. Summaries of findings may be subordinated under the conclusion statements. All these statements may be numbered or coded in some way so that they refer to pages or tables in the finding section upon which they are based. Next we will see about reference material. A. Bibliography. A bibliography means book list, that is a list of written sources either published or unpublished consulted in the preparation of the report during the course of research. Books, periodicals, articles, government documents, unpublished materials, pamphlets, films, radio or television broadcasts, records, lectures, interviews, etc. Bibliography may refer to all the documents which have bearing on the dissertation or thesis irrespective of their being actually referred to or not in the text. The main aim is to permit the reader to find out the exact item they have consulted. Consequently, there is a standard form. Bibliography may be arranged according to the alphabetical order, chronological order, divisions of the subject, kinds of words listed, etc. Generally, the simplest and the best arrangement for a short bibliography is the alphabetical order of author's last name. That is, the titles are arranged alphabetically by surnames. Some list of books is most convenient if arranged in the chronological order, divisions of the subject, kinds of works listed, etc. The chronological order is especially appropriate whenever a historical or development plan prevails. Works on history, for example, might be classified according to the countries. Works on education may be divided according to the various levels such as elementary, secondary, higher secondary and higher education. Writers sometimes desire to make separate divisions for primary source and secondary sources for books and periodicals, for assigned and unassigned works, etc. Current practice favors one comprehensive listing, not divisions into primary source and secondary sources or books, journals, newspapers, documents and official papers and manuscripts, although in an historical study such an ordering may be required. Next we will see about appendices. An appendix or appendices is used for additional or supplementary materials which have not found places in the main text. Here should be included complex or master tables, original data schedule, questionnaires and interview forms, copies of cover letters used in the study, documents and exploratory notes to the text, instructions to field workers, statistical tests employed and any other material evidences of considerable reference value. Synopsis bar abstracts. In several institutions, An abstract or synopsis of the thesis may be required. A synopsis should not be too long, and in some institutions they limit either in the number of words or pages as stipulated. It is also attached to thesis. In such cases, it should be drafted keeping in mind the following points: a short statement of the problem, a brief descriptions explaining the methodology and procedures used in collecting the data, and a condensed summary of the findings of the study. Index. The index may be either subject index or author index. An index of either type is not included in graduate or postgraduate students. Research reports. However, if the report is being prepared for publication and a technical manuscript or is intended as a work of reference, an index is desirable. The index, if prepared, should give an alphabetically arranged, detailed reference to all important matters discussed in the report, such as names of persons, places, events, definitions, concepts, and vital statements. The researcher therefore should study the indexes of other research reports published in his field and acquaint himself with the basis of the technique of index making. Footnotes. Footnotes are called footnotes because they are traditionally placed at the foot of the page. Modern writers and printers, for their own convenience, have introduced the practice of collecting them at the end of a book or chapter. Thus, footnotes may appear at the end of the thesis or chapter or at the bottom of each page. Placing footnotes at the end of each chapter is found more convenient, particularly if they are very numerous. This method of documentation combines with bibliography notes. Quotations. A research report should not be stuffed with quotations. They will be constructed as page-filling devices and poor arguments. Where quotations are used, they should be brief, not exceeding 1 or 2 lines, substantiating the views already expressed in the analysis. Tables. Tables are numbered consequently throughout the entire report, including those tables that may be placed in the appendix. The tables should be referred to in the body of the text by referring to their serial number and page. The researcher should digest the table and present the burden of it in the summary form in the text. Tables should contain the following components, such as the table number, the caption or title, the box heads, that is the caption identifying the vertical columns, the stud, that is the first column in the table identifying the row entries, and the field, the columns containing data. Figures. The commonest form of figures used in reports are line graphs, bar graphs, pie charts, area or volume charts, pictorial charts, maps, diagrams of apparatus, and photographs. It should be borne in mind that figures are not intended as subtitles for textual description but included to emphasize certain significant relationships. It should be borne in mind that figures are not intended as substitutes for textual description but include to emphasize certain significant relationships. Maps. When geographical location or identification is important, maps may be used. Identification may be by the use of dots, circles, or other symbols, and density or characteristics of areas represented by shading or cross-hatching. Well students, in this session we have discussed about the various aspects in report writing, which includes 3 main components. First, to start with the preliminary section, namely the title page, acknowledgement, table of contents, list of tables, list of figures, and list of abbreviations. The second part is introduction, main body of the report and conclusion. The last aspect is the reference material, in which bibliography, appendices, glossary of terms and index are given. Hence, report writing is an art which should be given utmost importance, because the hard work, planning and execution of the research work carried out by the researcher is depicted or expressed in black and white by the means of the research report. So, all the work carried out should be written carefully in a simple and understandable language for a third person to easily understand and grasp the content of the report, which is the real success of a researcher. To conclude, students, all of you should develop interest and learn minute tricks in writing a good research report as PG students. All the best. Have a great day. Thank you.